Hi, guys, and welcome to Cinemaholic Productions. I am Ryan Gordon, and I am a cinemaholic.
Howdy, guys. My name is Spencer Henderson, and I am also a cinemaholic.
So, today we're doing a special episode and meeting specifically about Westworld. A few weeks ago, when we started, we did the episode one recap and review. We stated that we didn't want to review the full thing because we wanted to see some more of the episodes. We're at the halfway point. Episode 6 was released last night, and that's one episode past halfway. So we're going to go through and we're going to do a recap today about episodes 1 through 5. We're going to be sharing our thoughts and maybe a little bit of some theory. We're basically just going to talk about it and let you know our thoughts, and then we're going to score episodes 1 through 5. So just a quick catch up on what Westworld is. It's the new J.J. Abrams produced, Jonathan Nolan written HBO original series based off of a 1973 feature film that actually takes place in 1983. I still have to go back because watching this, I wonder what was in the original and what they're just kind of running with. So that's on my to-do list. I want to go back and I want to watch the original movie. But to hop into it and to kind of get us started, Spencer, what are you thinking about episodes 1 through 5 of Westworld?
I'm a fan of episodes 1 through 5. I like them quite a bit. It's not a complete home run, I don't think, because here are kind of my thoughts on it. Is it's kind of more right now just setting up and world building and developing characters. I don't feel like anything super groundbreaking in the plot has taken place yet. It's kind of just setting up things that I think are going to take and become a huge play in the final things to come, such as like I guess we're going to get into spoilers in this episode, right?
Right, yeah. Let's kind of just give our thoughts and then spoiler free, and then we'll clearly say we're going spoilers, we're going theories.
Okay, well then I guess to give it kind of in a vague way, I want to say that they're kind of some of these characters, particularly the hosts of the park. It's setting up little things with the character that I think is eventually really soon in the show, especially with watching episode 6. We won't be talking about episode 6, but last night I saw some things that really make me think I have an idea of where the show's going to go, particularly because I have seen the original movie. I went back and watched it after watching episode 1, actually. And I'm really kind of curious to see if they're going to incorporate the plot of the original movie into this one. I think this show, sorry, it's almost like a movie though.
Right.
So I don't really feel like too bad for saying that because it's such a high production value in this. There are really great set pieces, particularly in episode 5. Episode 5 is probably the best episode of the series so far. That one was directed by Johnny Campbell, who I just looked up on IMDb. He's directed like episodes of Doctor Who, and so I haven't really seen anything else by him. But I'm really still, I know in the first episode when we talked about this, I said the character I was most invested in is Dolores. That still hasn't changed. I think she's by far the coolest character. But let's get into your thoughts, and I won't say the theory, I suppose, because I don't want to spoil anything for people, especially if we're trying to avoid those. So, what do you think of Westworld so far?
I've really liked it. I feel like for me, it's just like you said. The first 5 episodes have kind of been the big setup, and I can't remember if it was you or someone else that told me that after episode 5, Jonathan Nolan and them, they all got back together and they stopped production for a little while, and they really honed in and they were like, okay, we've started setting up and establishing what the show is. Now let's really pinpoint where it's going to go. And so episode 5 is kind of like the turning point, and I could tell that in the value is 1 through 5. I really enjoyed, and I did think that it was a giant movie, and I was really invested. But at the same time, I was very hesitant to stay up to date. I would miss a week and then binge watch 2 weeks, and I would kind of be hit and miss because it feels like they're trying to throw in so many little things about little characters that I don't know if it's going to pay off or not. It feels like it's been kind of muddy up to that point. And so I've really kind of been here or there, and it's been hard for me to focus because it's like, well, was that even necessary? What was that? Are you just kind of killing time? Where are we headed overall? Where are we going? Kind of a thing. But I feel like it's changed, and I feel like a lot of those things that I was maybe concerned about before are actually going to pay off in the long run. So, I mean, even though that's kind of my only gripe so far, it's not going to affect my scoring too much. I am still very invested in Evan Rachel Wood's character. I think originally I said I was more interested in not the Westworld part of it, but the not the host world part, but the exterior, the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's still the case. I'm very interested in the drama that's going on there, but I am totally invested in the Westworld part of it, if that makes sense.
Okay, so let's give our scores. Do you want to? And then let's get into spoilers
Yeah.
because I have a couple questions about regarding what you just said.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So let's score it. I'm going to score it an 8.2 out of 10. Just because, like I said, it felt a little muddy, but I'm still super invested. It's really high quality television, like you said, very good production value. I'm interested to see where it goes.
Yeah, we're pretty close. I'm an 8.5 out of 10. So we're along the same lines. I think we're kind of both, because there was one week where I missed an episode, but other than that, I've made this a pretty much a priority to keep up with Westworld, just because I think it's doing some really interesting things that we haven't seen. We've never seen a TV show that's a sci-fi show of this type on TV. So I think it's really cool and hope we can get another season out of it or so.
Perfect. Yeah. So let's get into spoilers then. From here on out, we're going spoilers. You had some questions laid on me.
Okay, so regarding the world part, because I'm more invested in the West part, just because like that's more kind of the part where there's kind of more freedom to explore stuff
Right.
for the filmmakers and the actors. I feel like, and but the world, I'm starting to get more interested in it because of kind of the way that some of these employees are kind of messing with the robots. I'm finding super intriguing and interesting. Is that why you find it so
Yeah.
interesting?
Yeah, definitely. Since I mentioned it when we talked about episode one, was that cinematically and visually, the world part was so intriguing to me. Where the West just kind of felt like it was there. It felt kind of even generic. I don't want to say that because it was visually striking at the same time, but I was very intrigued with the contrast between the cinematography between the two. And since episode two, I decided I was like, they're spending a lot of time in the world, even though it's not that much time. It is very Westworld oriented, but I feel like they're bringing the real world into it so much. It's going to have a bigger role than most people were expecting from the beginning. And
Right.
like you said, people are messing with things. They're getting faulty. And if we're going spoilers right now, my theory after episode 5 was that the whole scheme may be to get the characters out of Westworld, and kind of like an ex machina kind of thing, that it'll try and go that route of getting them out of the West and into the world and incorporating them into the world, and then maybe crossing over into whatever worlds that they've established, not just the West.
Okay, I kind of see what you think. And I definitely agree with you that the drama of that is really interesting. I just think with the characters who are in the West part, I think are just way more interesting to me personally. Like
100%.
I really think though that to piggyback off what you just said about the world, that when we see these characters from the West interact with the people in the world, there are some really great scenes with tension in them because you're like, are they going to notice that this robot's kind of starting to get these feelings and, you know, start to develop kind of thoughts that maybe artificial intelligence shouldn't be having? But let me tell you this theory that lots of people have, because I think you'll be really interested in this, and I'm kind of starting to buy it more and more. And that is that this show takes place in two separate timelines. So one of the timelines is the timeline with the Man in Black and his goal to get to the center of the maze. And the other timeline is the Dolores, William, and William's friend, what's his name? I don't remember, but his buddy. So the theory is that William eventually will become the Man in Black, because they're both on vacation, they're both businessmen, and it's kind of starting to set up small things that William might start to be a little bit, have more of a dark side.
Right.
So that's kind of something that I heard, and looking kind of at the kind of characteristics of each of the actors who play that character, they look very much alike. They both have blue eyes. And it seems like the progression of the character of William, although he starts off as kind of like the white hat kind of good guy who has feelings for these artificial intelligence and is more protective of them than his buddy, it kind of seems with each passing episode where we don't see a confrontation between William and the Man in Black. Since we haven't seen that yet, that's something that lots of people are thinking. Do you think that's something that could be plausible?
My first thought was to like reject the theory and be like, no, because having seen episode 5 so freshly, I watched it this morning. There's how the Man in Black gets Teddy to go with him, as he says, we got to go. Wyatt has kidnapped Dolores, and so he goes, and that's their whole goal, is that they're going to get Dolores. And I'm like, no, they can't be two separate timelines if that's what they're going to do. But that's what this whole show has kind of done, is it set it up to a way that he could just be screwing with his mind.
Exactly. Like
setting it up. So
you have to kind of think about who's the person that he's talking to. It's Teddy. And speaking of which, I think James Marsden is really good in this show.
Hands down.
He's really kind of plays a character we haven't seen him play before. And I think it's pretty interesting to see him in that role. Ed Harris is also really, really good in this show. I think all the performances are pretty good.
I agree. Speaking of Ed Harris, the Man in Black, what do you think his role is? Until the end of episode 5, I was kind of getting the feeling that he was Arnold. Even though they've said that he's died, I was thinking maybe some way, somehow he didn't die. He ingested himself into the Westworld, into the game, and he was trying to unravel it. Towards the end of episode 5, I was leaning away from that. He has a talk in the bar. They have a discussion, and I was like, well, they would have acknowledged each other. If they were co-creators, they would have had some sort of an acknowledgement. Do you think there's anything to that? Or who do you think the Man in Black is? Is he just a visitor who's interested in unraveling the mysteries?
Well, kind of like I just said, I'm pretty convinced that he might be Will, is the thing. And you did say that one, there's that one line where he brings up Dolores and the other two guys. And see, that's the one thing that kind of pokes holes for me in that theory. So I don't really know, but I really like the character of the Man in Black, because he's this really, really he's basically, if you've ever played video games and have played multiplayer games in particular, everybody's met somebody who's like the Man in Black, who you're like, man, if the apocalypse happened, you'd be like the Negan from The Walking Dead, who's like bashing somebody's head in with like a baseball bat with wire on it, because some of these people are just so like foul and crazy. So watching this show, being kind of a gamer on the side and seeing how this guy interacts with these hosts, and just the way he just will brutally slaughter them and just uses them in whatever way he needs them to his advantage, is just something that I find totally plausible if this sort of world existed. And he's kind of just the guy who has so much disposable income, who, you know, is willing to just blow it all on this type of stuff. And talking about, oddly enough, to make this comparison, Tickled this last week, we've recently just seen a movie, or talked about a movie on this show, that discusses people who have way too much disposable income, who are able to spend it in whatever way they want, regardless how immoral or corrupt those ways are. So it's pretty interesting, I think, those types of ideas. And that's the thing, is Westworld is a show that's more about ideas.
And okay, so I really like that, and that got me thinking about another thing that dropped, was the guy who had gone up to the mountains and was supposedly drawing Orion's belt. In episode, I think it's episode 5. Stop me if this is episode 6. He's got the thing in his arm. And
the stray.
Yeah.
The stray.
Yeah, the stray.
Because he's also in episode 3. That's the thing about this show, is it's so crazy. They like they replay parts, and you don't really know which episodes they're in, but I'm pretty sure we're still talking in episode 5. If not, it's not a big deal. So just continue.
So she pulls the thing out, and she says that it's people siphoning data, and they're using the hosts to siphon data. Do you think that has anything to do? That helps me buy into the Will being the Man in Black a little bit more, because the whole reason they said they were going was business endeavors, and they were going to set up shop and stuff. And that I can buy into, that he is the Man in Black. He's trying to figure this whole thing out, and on the side he's siphoning out data for his employer or for his business. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, as well as if the Man in Black is Will, is Wyatt his friend? Is Wyatt the guy they're going after?
See, that's the thing. That's the point where we're talking about where I'm not sure if Will is the Man in Black, because there's so many kind of continuity errors like that. Like, who is really, like, because here's one of the reasons why I started to think that this theory had some validity, was because at one point in the show, the Man in Black talks about why he's there, and he says it's his vacation, and that's the same exact reason why why Will said he was there with his buddy. And so what I think is going to happen is eventually his buddy's going to die. Either he's going to kill him or something's going to happen, and it's going to slowly trigger his evolution into the Man in Black.
Gotcha.
Maybe because they have that scene of tension between Will and the other guy when he says the best day of your life was when I promoted you, or whatever, and Will slams him up against the wall and looks super, super upset. And you're like, okay, so he does have a little bit of a dark streak in him, maybe, because he lets his emotions get to him to a certain extent. And it's almost like the way that he's so involved in this world, and is kind of the guy who wanted to start the journey in the first place, it seems more likely that he would be the guy who gets way, way, way too into it, as the Man in Black kind of has.
Gotcha. I would definitely buy into that. And half of me, see, I think that's my downside of why I gave it an 8.2 out of instead of a 9.5 or whatever. I feel like there are a lot of these little nuggets that, to me at this point, feel like they're just continuity errors, that felt like they didn't quite know where they wanted to go. And I feel like that's something in film and TV in general today, is they throw these things at you to confuse you so that you don't pick up on the overall thing. So it's a bigger surprise at the end. But then once you find out the surprise and you go back, it's like all of that was a lie. Like, it doesn't add up. I know what you were trying to do, but you need to think a little bit harder. And if you're going to plant a detail like this, in some way at the end, it does need to pay off, or you can't change the continuity of it throughout. And I feel like that's maybe something that's been happening, is they've been saying little things because they didn't know what they wanted to do in the long run. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just kind of what it's feeling like it's adding up to at this point.
And see, the thing about this show is it's really a show that piles you with so much information. Like discussing it right now, we're like 6 episodes in, and it's really tough to keep track of which episode is which, like I said, because of the way the show is structured. So it is something that I feel like before episode 10 airs, I'm gonna go back and just watch all 9 episodes over again. Just because like there's really so much information and so many characters that kind of seem like they're going to be important to the story. Even some of these smaller characters that we're kind of just now being introduced to, they seem like they're setting up big plot points in the story. So it's something that kind of feels Game of Thronesy in the sense that it's a lot of characters, but I don't think it's quite as graceful as Game of Thrones
Right.
is in the way that it transitions between characters and um, kind of sets the plot points with the characters and introduces them to the story. So that's why my score is a little bit, it isn't quite a 9, kind of like you said. I don't think this is quite the home run yet. It could be. By the end of the season, my score and thoughts on this thing could change, but it also could change in the opposite direction. I could start just thinking that this show is a mess, and that's what I'm worried about. Is it could be just a mess, but if it is a mess, I feel like it's at least a beautiful mess, kind of, and it's an ambitious mess. So
I agree with that. Just maybe even just wrapping up. That's why I love binge watching content so much, because with something like this, with so much information within the week of watching an episode to an episode, I feel like I've forgotten so much that I'm kind of lost, and I'm like, wait a minute, did I see this part, or are they just saying that I saw this part? And it's kind of here and there, but I as well, I'm going to binge watch it to the final episode. So just kind of wrapping up my thoughts, I'm super excited. I'm excited to see where it goes. I like that it's giving us a chance to speculate and see where it's going to go. I appreciate that. My final question to you is going to be, when we get to episode 10, do you think it wraps up? Because I mean, they're going to go for a season 2. So are they going to try and wrap this up and even tell us who the Man in Black is by the end? Or do you think they're going to leave us on a cliffhanger to come back for season 2?
So my theory with this is, having seen the original movie, in the original movie there are other worlds. So
Right.
my hope is that they will wrap up the plot of Westworld in this season and set up a new world for next season and kind of have us see maybe a different perspective in the different worlds. But one thing I kind of wanted to say about this, commenting on what you just said about, or what we kind of both just said about how we don't really know which episode we're in or which episode we just watched. Maybe that's the point,
Right.
because that's a thought that the hosts are having a lot throughout the show is, have I seen this before? Have I been here before? What is, so maybe we're supposed to feel confused. Maybe they're trying to make us feel, as an audience, disoriented and a little bit kind of more detached than we're kind of used to from the storyline, because we're more being told the story from the perspective of the hosts. Like, I
Right.
mean, we have Will in the center, but I'd argue that Dolores is the main character of this show. So
Definitely.
yeah,
Well,
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Westworld. I just hope they can stick the landing.
right. And I feel like maybe, I don't know, because it's a double-edged sword if that's what they are planning on doing, because you look at Stranger Things, and that's something that it was so nice. Even True Detective, I didn't get on the True Detective train until it had already come out and I could binge it. And so I feel like maybe this content is binge worthy content. Maybe this was designed to be ingested in that kind of format. And so maybe they're just doing, I mean, because it's HBO and that's what they do. They release it week by week. Maybe they're just doing that because, but like you said, maybe that is the point. Maybe this was supposed to be ingested as a 10-hour movie where you sit down and you're not as lost and it's not as incoherent, because I feel like that is a turnoff, that if people do get this far and they're like, I don't get it, they're going to check out if they're not invested. But at the same time, if that is what you're going for, in the long run, it may pay off. So I'm excited. We'll see where it goes.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Well,
so thanks everyone for watching. Do you have any additional final comments, Spencer?
I do not. Just curious to see where Westworld ends up in the pantheon of HBO shows.
Definitely. Follow me right here on Twitter, at Rye_Gordon, or on Instagram at the same. I think that's all that we have. If you liked this episode, go ahead and like it. Subscribe to the channel for further episodes. Leave us your comments. What are some of your theories? Where do you think this is going? Do you like this show? And if you have any suggestions for other shows that you'd like us to talk about and include you guys in.
You guys can follow me on Twitter at SpinnyHand. And guys, make sure to tune in this Sunday, because me and Ryan are going to be talking about Arrival, directed by Denis Villeneuve. And this is supposed to be a pretty good movie. I'm pretty excited for it. So what about you, Ryan? Pretty excited for Arrival?
Definitely very excited. It's played at a few festivals, and they've had a lot of critic screenings, and people are ranting about this movie. And I've loved everything that this director has done before. So definitely looking forward to it. I have a feeling it's not what it's pretending to be at this point. I think there's going to be some big twists in this movie.
Awesome. So tune in Sunday for that review of Arrival. Everybody have a great day. We will see you next week.